Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Well, I'm so excited to be speaking with Jamie Garavaglia. And
Perfect.
as I say, close enough, I hope. But the funny
Perfect.
thing is, let's be honest, nobody gets my name right either. And so it's such you and I did a podcast not that long ago. And when we finished, we probably could have talked maybe 2 or 3 more hours. I don't think I would have had anyone still listening, although not because of lack of interest. It's just that nobody has that attention span anymore. But you and I could have, I thought like at the end of it, we were new best friends. And I so enjoyed our podcast time together, which everybody will air on my PR weekly podcast there. I'll throw myself a plug in a few weeks. But I said to you afterwards, I want you to come on to my FaceTime Live because it's a little more immediate when I do these. And I really want people to hear about your business, especially locally. Although we live in this virtual world now, I say we live in the between the box. So please introduce yourself, tell everyone a little bit of background about yourself, and then we'll get into talking more about you.
Fantastic.
It's all about you, Jamie.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and I really appreciate it. And I did also love our podcast time together. I thought that we had so much to talk about. So for more podcasts to come, hopefully. But so yeah,
Absolutely.
I started a business, Jamie Garavaglia Consulting. It's not the most original name, but it encompasses that I'm a business consultant. And basically what I do is I help business owners to set up for growth and scaling their businesses by developing, documenting, and digitizing their systems and processes. And then I also do things like help recruit or put together retention programs for their employees or their clients. And so there's a lot that kind of goes into the consulting world. But my main focus is to really get into that nitty gritty of the DNA of a business, the processes and the systems, and get them down so that we can scale, that businesses can scale without having to worry about reteaching every single time and figuring out how to do something every single time there's turnover or they want to grow from maybe 1 unit to 2 units or just grow their business internally. So that's about what my business is about. And I kind of came to this in the COVID moment where I had been working for a fitness brand for 5 years as a regional director of sales and operations, and I loved my job. But when we kind of locked down and then schools were so uncertain, I have 2 kids, one's 9 and 10 years old, and I just couldn't see a path forward to be able to do that position in the way that it needed to be done. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna, do what I do for them, but in a little bit more flexible of a way for myself. And so this allows me that, and it's been fantastic so far.
So I'm gonna call you out on something that I think, I'm gonna call you out to explain something, I should say.
Fair enough.
And that is that to the average ear, someone says, operating procedures and processes. Now, I'm a retail store, or I'm an accountant, or any business that you would go in. I look around my desk itself, and I have my way of doing things. And God knows, right or wrong, it's my way. And so I'm always like fearful, like, really, I'm going to bring in an assistant. I'm going to try and explain this madness to them. But you go into offices right now, offices virtually.
Mm-hmm. That's
but,
right.
Tell me the steps, because I think when we hear these words, processes and procedures, I think sometimes an average person doesn't necessarily use those words. That's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That is what they're doing,
mm-hmm.
But they don't necessarily use those words. And I'm wondering, to the average listener, what does that mean? Like,
Sure.
Not physically or mentally, like, you know, do you pull out a piece of paper? Do you write down? Like, tell me a little bit more about what it looks like.
Sure. So, great point. And so let's like start from the beginning. So when you started your business as somebody who works for themselves, and I don't know if you have a virtual team behind you or a team behind you, but you not
They're hidden.
You as a solopreneur can do you have a way in which I'm sure you do business. You get a client, there's specific emails that you send out to make sure you're confirming, there's communication processes that you have in place, there's a definition of the scope of work that you're going to do for them, there is probably a contract you put in place, there's ongoing communication, maybe whether it's weekly meetings that are a cadence of meetings that are going on. And so this is stuff that most people do naturally as they're growing and developing their business. And I'm just talking about somebody who's kind of by themselves like you and me. But so all that stuff, as you grow or as you become too busy and know that it's more efficient for you or myself to bring in somebody to do some of that work that is task oriented, documenting how you do that and how your vision of how you want the phone to be answered or the client email to be sent out, even templates for emails, contract templates, all of this stuff can be done, and we can be super efficient with how we work with somebody else if we take the time to document it. And I find that most times people don't take the time because they're just going about their day. They're in their business, right. They're working it, they're in their flow. And to stop and go back, it's counterintuitive almost. It's like, why would I spend my time? I do that so naturally. But the problem becomes when you want to bring somebody else into your fold, it takes so much time to get them to see your vision and to do the things that you want them to do. And so it is like sitting down and taking a paper and a pencil, talking about what documents you have, organizing them, finding which system you want to house those documents in. Are there gaps in your system? Are there things that I may know about tech-wise that might make you more efficient, and can I help fill those gaps for you, and we can incorporate them into your job and your work. So it all gets written down, it all gets documented, it all gets placed into one single spot, whether that's like a Trainual or Google Docs or Google Drive or you know, Dropbox. You know, there's 1,000 ways in which you can do that. Some are paid, some are have fees, and some don't. But it's all there so that when somebody comes in to the business, it's not like a huge learning curve for you to figure out how to train them. And that's just on a one person. So now you're going to take it to a corporation or a business that has, you know, 1 to 50 people or 50 plus. Now we're looking at a way more complex system, and everything really should be documented in order to be able to put best practices in place, to be able to train people and not have it spend much more money that a company doesn't need to spend because they've done this once, they've got it, and then they just kind of keep tweaking it as things evolve.
So what is the time frame? Like if somebody comes in, well, twofold. One, what's the time frame usually that someone has to prepare to work for you? Because it sounds like that people need to sort of get their act together a little bit before you get there. There's a little bit of here's what I do on a daily basis, or here's the email types I send out, or things like that. So that would be one aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And they make the phone call and email to you and say, hey, I need your help. What kind of time frame is involved in putting some of those processes together?
Yeah.
Because it seems like the best, like this is what I loved. It seemed like the best idea, best of how to conduct your business, but it also seems daunting. Like, let's be honest, like, you know, it's a little, I mean, I like to call things the way they are. And it's scary. Like if I had to spend a day writing down what I do or looking what I do, you know, the idea is to know that once I do it, this is the good outcome, you know, but how do you get people?
Yeah. So I meet you where you're at. So there are some
You didn't realize you were on did you realize you were going to be on the hot seat?
No, I love this. This is fantastic. So I meet people where they're at. Some people come to me and they can have all their documents already placed, or they have a team of people that they're plucking from departments. And sometimes that's what I do also, is I will take a team of people, managers, directors, you know, from a department, and they will be kind of like a group that we go together and we kind of move along together. That's a bigger scale organization, right?
Sure.
But so a lot of people innately have this stuff and they don't even realize that they have this stuff already documented. So it's not a ton of prep that needs to happen. What really needs to happen is, and like I said, I would meet people where they're at. So if somebody were to come to me and say, I have never written anything down in my life, we would start with a call and really just kind of get down all the ways in which they operate during a day. And that call I can structure for them. And then I would start to say, but you do have this, you have past emails you sent, just forward them to me. I'll take out what you need. You have contracts, forward them to me. And I can put down a list of what needs to be done. And then it organically happens where we realize what we need to create and what we need to develop in the gaps. As far as a time frame, it can take, you know, it's so different for every company. So it just depends. Some people want to come in and say, listen, I am doing, you know, I'm bringing in a new receptionist at my office. I really need to just kind of nail this piece. And this is just an example.
Yeah.
And let's just start with this and then go from there. And so that one piece could take a few weeks. But if you want to do an entire company, I could be there for a year. It really just depends how much you want to document it. It doesn't have to be everything at once. And I think that's kind of the daunting part of it. Let's just work with one part of your business. Let's talk about employee onboarding, or let's just talk about how you're recruiting people and that process, or how do you give raises and determine how you're going to evaluate your staff? Like that, there are so many different segments. We could start with one. We could start with people that are strategically placed within the company, and they're in charge of helping me gather that information from their departments. So there's tons of ways we can go about it. And I really am, I'll go in and recommend some, but it's up to the client to decide what works best for them. And so it eventually gets there, but it could be a long process for sure.
Yeah. How do people really realize like that it's not working and you're the person they need? Like what do you hear from your clients that I finally picked up the phone and called you?
There's a few different scenarios. One scenario is where, okay, I have a company and I want to put it into a place where I can, like I said, go from one store to two stores, or one agency to two agencies, or whatever it may be, or to five, and I want to scale and grow, or I want to franchise, and so that is a full look at all the systems and processes, all the positions, all of the elements, finding the gaps. And so that is one way. Somebody wants to really scale their operations and duplicate it through multiple locations. Another is, I often find that people are, okay, we're growing, we're bringing in new positions, and we're trying to fill old positions because there's internal growth, and we're kind of growing this way now, up and in internally. And now we're realizing, we've had this person sitting at this front desk, or in this accounting department, or as our recruiter for 2 years, and I have no idea how this person does their job, let alone now trying to make them a director of a department and trying to fill their role. We need something in place so that we know that people are consistent and we can bring people in. So it's oftentimes when you're recruiting and growing a business. And then lastly, just I would say that when people leave a company and there was no warning, and now the owner is like, I have no idea what to do.
I don't know what they did.
I don't know what they did on a daily basis. I have no idea. And that's no way to run a business, right? To have, so those are kind of the three scenarios I find.
So one of the reasons, I love talking to you is because it makes you evaluate how you are doing things. And those who are listening, I hope that's, a little bit what's going on, and you're not panicking out there. I don't want anyone panicking.
No panic.
We'll give you Jamie's, contact information, but, especially when you are a business owner and you feel you're organized and you feel that you're running a successful business. And I think that most of us do feel that, but what happens is that you always want to take your business to another level. And whether you're alone or you have a team, or you're Chrysler, for God's sake, there are systems, and you're right, there are systems in place, whether you realize it or not. And that's why I wanted you to really break down what that word is, because whether it doesn't matter what you call them, there are processes, there are systems, there are things we do. And just in my own world there are things I do. Yes, I have proposals and I have emails, and and I wanted you to break it down, because even my normal everyday emails that I send, they do look similar. And I would venture to guess that a lot of people send very similar emails, whether it's a retail store that sends to vendors, very similar emails. And I thought what was interesting in talking to you is that sometimes we struggle for the words or the right email, and well, you don't have to struggle anymore. Here's the vendor email, here's the client, I need this type of email or this type of form. There's room to always put in the personal note of how's your day, how's your kids, I'm sorry, this, whatever. But there is that, I always say you don't have to look at that blank piece of paper or that blank, email. And I like that. I did about a year ago, hire a virtual team to do some things. I laughed because the first maybe 2 weeks, they kept emailing me saying, you haven't sent us anything. What do you want us to do? We need to be doing, and I was like, yeah, I felt like I know this isn't going to work because I do everything. And what we soon realized is that we needed a better, it wasn't even communication. They needed to handhold me a little bit better in my process of, okay, here's this type A person who's always done everything herself. We're going to actually put in place what she has to give us. What we're doing for, it was like, we're going to scold you and say, nope, you need to give us this. We're going to do, we're doing this for you. And then you soon realize like, oh, this is a gift. Like this makes my life easier to run other parts of my business. And I think that that's what people have to realize, what an investment they're making in their business when you come in.
Yeah, it's a little painful. Like I totally understand your analogy because it feels like a little painful in the beginning. It's like I would analogize it to like you're going to the gym for the first month. Like it's painful, right? Like it's like you're working that muscle, and then all of a sudden you're like, I feel awesome. Like I feel amazing. I've got so much more energy. I've got so much more time. I've got so much more whatever. And that's really what it is. It's like, it is going to be a little bit of a grind, and I will walk through that grind with you and help you through it.
You're the personal trainer.
But afterwards, it's really about giving you freedom. And it's that saying, like not working in your business, but working on your business. It's, if you can't relinquish that control while still actually having control, because you're the one giving everything that you need to somebody else, but you will be able to have a freedom that you haven't had before, and be able to kind of free up time for so much more important stuff. And it's not saying that what you document, let's say your emails, or you may give it to your virtual assistant and say, hey, this was what I did and this is how I've done it forever. And that virtual assistant, after working with you for a little bit of time, may say to you, I love that you have this for me, but God, I've done it this way. What do you think? And you don't know what can come out. It's kind of like the processes and the systems are best practices. They're what you've done in the past. They're what you're continuing to do. But then you hire new people and you bring new blood into it, and they can just make it that much better. And having all that documented, then they can revise it and it's still there. It's not like somebody, and this is what I often see, is that we have so many people working on in a role. Let's say you have, and I'm going to talk about like a store, and you have multiple stores or a franchise or whatever it may be, and you have the same person that's doing the sales. Well, this person's personality comes into the sale in this way, and then this person kind of starts to tweak what the real foundation is of, and they shouldn't be. There should be like a baseline that's documented. And then if somebody's bringing themselves forward and it works for the company, then that's great. You'll change it and you'll share that idea and communicate it out to everybody else. But then there's some people who take it and don't make it better. And you have that foundation to come back on and say, you know what?
Right.
Stick with this, because this isn't working. So it's always kind of that baseline foundation, and it's not to stifle innovation or change. It's actually it's like the just base DNA, and then you kind of keep on evolving, and also walking back and it isn't working really.
Yeah, and I love that, because I think it keeps a company on brand.
Yeah.
I think that you bring out really important points that I think that we saw a lot with COVID, and that was when people went home to work, managers didn't necessarily know all that they were managing.
Yeah.
So I know that I talked to a lot of the companies, I deal with either the marketing director or the owners. And the minute their employees went home to work, they're sort of like, I know they get their job done, but I don't really know what they do. And now they're at home.
Right.
And that's when I was like, oh, okay, well, you need to know what they're doing, because they need to be as productive at home, as productive as they were sitting in front of you. And, we can tend to be sometimes less productive at home unless you're used to working at home and you've had your own system in place, hopefully. But I don't know that so much, in your world, we're not necessarily going back to exactly life the way it has been. I have kids who are working, and there's just no talk of them going back into their offices anytime soon. So this may be how our millennials are going to be working. A lot of them are going to be hired, onboarded, as you say, in this box. They're going to be hired in a box, interviewed in a box, and onboarded in a box.
Right.
So companies who are not ready and have in place, how that looks, how to meet people in the company, which I think is really key. We know how to meet people in person, but how do you meet people? How have you called you to say, hey, Jamie, all these people are working at home, and now I have to hire 5 new people because we're doing okay, but I got to hire 5 new people, but they don't know anybody. How do I bring on the Brady Bunch Zoom and say, oh, well, hey, here's, so-and-so, meet each other.
Right.
And
yeah, well, and I think it's a great point. And I think that obviously the way in which we're working now is so different. And I think companies that have their systems and processes documented have a lot easier time of that. But also the companies that, you would come in, let's say you are a new employee, and you would have somebody say, hi, I'm going to show you around the office. I'm going to have you shadow me. Shadowing,
Mhm.
those things are gone right now. And so being able
Mhm.
to do that in a virtual world means having to write things down and having to walk people through a new position in a way which is very organized and has documentation and has videos possibly, and maybe a company video welcoming them. And so
Right.
there's so much that can be put into place and really put down in a way that isn't stiff, but it could be as easy as, like, on somebody's first day, they automatically get this company video with the owner saying, I'm so happy that you're here today. And this is
I
our
love that.
process for onboarding you. These are the people you're going to hear from today. And this is our plan for the next 30 days for you. And then you kind of can deliver, it could all be done through videos or that sort of thing, but that has to be, somebody has to help you get there. And so that's kind of what
Right.
I'd love to do, is to look at each piece of the pie. And that's just onboarding a new employee virtually. But there are ways we can do it and be super creative that I think people think of documents, systems, processes, getting it all, it's so
It's
stiff.
just shuffling paper.
Yeah, and it sounds so stiff, but it
right.
doesn't have to be in today's day and age. It doesn't have to be.
Well, and that's not going to work in today's day and age. We're talking about, we're not hiring that age group. We're hiring people who are now getting used to this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're hiring, whether it be a summer job intern or a real permanent job, we're hiring people who this is becoming their world.
Yes.
And so, they're going to look also at companies who are thinking out of the box and are thinking about how they bring them in. I mean, it's unbelievable to think that there's choices out there, but there are choices out there about where people can go work.
Sure.
And even in a not the best of economy, but people can say, well, God, look how creative they were. Look at, how they interviewed me. I mean, I have heard this from people transitioning at 30 years old. They're like, my interview was not that great and how it was conducted. And I'm thinking to myself, who is this 30-year-old? But you know what? They're used to the whole Zoom world and how businesses are doing it. And I think that on the company side, they have to think about it and think about how their processes are. Are they stuck? Are they stuck in what worked in an in-person world versus we are not in an in-person world? We're stuck. We're stuck in the virtual and in person because some companies have a little bit of both in order to keep people healthy and safe. With that in mind, I want to watch your time too. What I have this, what technology do you think a lot of companies maybe sort of not have in place, or do you think they're getting in place now to sort of be where they need to be? I mean, we certainly heard, I mean, people thought that Zoom was new 6 months ago, whereas not so new, but I love when people go, oh, have you heard about this Zoom thing? I'm like,
yes, I have.
But like, I love that people think it's new, but so
there's so many, every day I feel like I hear about new tech that's out there that's really incredible and can help make people's business easier. So we can go from everything from one-on-one, just like people are a little even, and I know this sounds so basic, but people have never been on like the G Suite and being able to collaborate in a document together. They're used to having a server, saving to the server, or saving on their desktop at their office and being able to either print something or get it out. But if you save it on a server or Dropbox and somebody else opens it and then it's saved, it's not the same as a collaborative, like a G Suite type of thing where you each can be in, you can comment, you can edit, it's all happening in real time. So that's there's so many documentation opportunities out there that people can collaborate. But one, and I haven't specifically worked in it, but I've heard so many companies that have, and is a software called Slack. And I, my company just hadn't ever used it, but there's so many.
So my daughter works for a company. Well, go ahead and explain Slack.
Well, and so basically, it's not only a way to communicate and collaborate and work, project manage, upload specific tasks to people with attachments. Mm-hmm. Everything's in real time. Everything's cloud-based. It is really a full onboarded suite of a collaborative virtual tool for basically a virtual company. And so something like that, I think that is missing. And if companies don't have those things in place, now's the time to look into them. But so please tell me more of what because I haven't had firsthand experience with it.
I look, again, I like to think I'm a cool mom. I've been told otherwise, but I will say that my daughter works for SoulCycle. I hope I'm not telling secrets. Well, she worked for SoulCycle, and now she works for the production company who is doing their online classes, and they use Slack. And I had not heard of it. And she was just one day telling me about that they were communicating, and she kept saying Slack, and I'm like, what the heck so you have to learn from your kids, always. And some of the technologies that are out there that our kids are using, I want nothing to do with in the business world. And I'm always really clear about that. You're not going to see me TikTok, and I'm not a fan of Snapchat, but that's in the business world, and my friends who want to TikTok, go, God bless. But anyway, so she was telling me about it, and they use it. And at first I was like, well, it sounds like our family chat, like we have the five of us have a family chat. And she said, yeah, if you can think about it that way, but it's just so much more. It's a business platform where you sort of don't leave anyone behind.
That's right.
Where you all can be on it. They use it for their work schedules, changing schedules. It's very internal to their business, and people can check things, and it's private and immediate, and it's not this email huge threads and lots
where you have to go search your email a year back. It's all right there in the same conversation with uploads and documents and tasks. Yeah, so I was really intrigued by it, and I guess the only thing I really didn't follow through to know more about is how little, I guess, is too little to be using it. So, if you're a company of 3 or 4, is that really the best system versus there's so many on this particular company? But, I am always interested, like you, to know about business platforms because, one, I run into clients who use a lot of different platforms, so they'll want to engage me often in their Google Docs, or certainly I have probably the most I can have in the Dropbox. Like, I'm constantly adding to my Dropbox because I have so much in there, and I happen to love Dropbox, whether it be old school or not, but I also am able to send to media, Dropbox. Yes.
Sure. And I will say this to my media partners, this has made them really look at their systems because they weren't necessarily ready to do media by Zoom, and some still do it by Skype, which is scary. And you have to give them things in Dropbox. So, different industries are behind in how they do things. So
sure.
I do try and do a little reading on some of these technologies.
Well, and
or call my kids.
Yeah, I think there's new stuff coming out every day, and I did a series on my social media called Tech Tip Tuesdays, and I would highlight a different tech that I used. But there are like CRM platforms or client relation management platforms for people that are sole proprietors. It's Dubsado, there's Trello to keep you organized, there's Todoist to give you tasks that remind you and send you into your inbox every day, tasks that you've set up that are all apps on your phone. So there's so much out there. My suggestion for companies figuring out, okay, this is what we need, I literally would just Google and you'll see so much come up. Like there was a point where I wasn't sure which standard operating procedure documentation system I should use for a company. And I literally am like, okay, what's out there now? Because every day I don't even know what I don't know. It's so fast coming out. You just have to be willing to research.
I also think you have to be willing to try a little bit too. Like I know there are calendar and things to do and task apps, and I have tried many of them and I don't like them, me personally. It doesn't work for me because I don't necessarily look at my phone that way or my computer that way. So it doesn't work for me. I am still a little old school in I need a list. But I use my calendar electronically, so some systems, I think, are hard to break. But I think you have to be willing to try them. And look, we all used to have Franklin planners. I was the queen of Franklin Planner and highlighting. And so it's very funny because I no longer have a Franklin Planner, everybody, but in my phone, I have a calendar app that I can have things in different colors. And I still need that. It still is something that, does work for me. I have always wanted to have my things to do or my client things to do list electronically, but I haven't been able to transfer that over yet. And so I've done other things. I'm always like, okay, but I've done other things. So
everybody has their ways that work for them, and I'm not saying to change them. I would say this, that most of these new apps, whatever they are, or software, have free trials. And oftentimes I will just try them so that I can be more educated on suggestions for companies that I work with. But I'll try the free trial. I'll play in it. I'll get a free demo. Sometimes they have webinars online. You can do reviews on YouTube of any of this stuff. And there are people that, any software, you go to, let's say you were to say, I want to learn how to use Dubsado, and you go onto YouTube, there's like 50 people that literally can walk you through one-on-one, and so there's so many resources. Check it out, see, educate yourself. And if it doesn't work for you, like if I tried something and after 3 days I'm no longer using it, it wasn't for me. That's fine. Because I also struggle figuring out that pen and paper versus electronic, and I do a little bit of both because that's what works for me. And I am, of the day of a Franklin planner myself. So those are hardwired into us.
Oh, there are days I miss my Franklin planner.
I hear you.
Sure. Jamie, how do people find you? Because the truth of the matter is, the best part is that you are willing to find the process that works for any size company. And I think that the one thing I adore about you is that you have really stepped into this pandemic world, been doing this, but really look at how people are having to change their business and find the best process. And that's really what, now being able to talk to you a few times, I just see so much the care and the drive that you are putting in. And so I want people to really, how do they find you? Because I just think that people, in order to grow their business and adapt their business differently, they have to think about how they're doing their business right now. And they may need to be making changes,
and you're not in it alone.
Areas.
Yeah, I'll be right there with you, but thank you. So people can reach me at Jamie, Jamieg, for my last name, Garavaglia. I didn't write that all out because I knew it was a long name. So jamiegconsulting.com is my website, and you can find me there, and I would walk anybody through this. It is not anything to be worried about, or, it's a process that we would walk through together. And I appreciate you for having me on. It's been a ton of fun, and I love talking to you. We could spend all day.
we could. I'm looking at the time going, boy, we both should go back to work, but yeah. I love talking. You know what? I think it could be my type A, but or my Franklin Planner days.
We're just business geeks, right? Like, I like to geek out on this stuff a little bit.
I'm like, and I've been caught. This is my youngest child has caught me where he's like, Mom, they have free trials. Use the free trial. Stop paying for subscription.
Yes.
And it's just so funny because I love to try calendar apps and things to do apps, and I do like to investigate those things that can make your day go smoother. But there are things way beyond an app and that's why you need to reach out to Jamie at jamiegconsulting.com and have a conversation just like this, and you'll see that your business will really truly take off and grow. And what I can say is it may just be one area of your business,
just one area. Start small and see if it makes an impact for you, and then go from there. So yeah.
Well, Jamie, have a great day.
Thank you so much.
And enjoy Michigan fall weather. I love it. I think it's going to be like 80 in the fall.
It's crazy. 51 day, 80 the next. Who knows?
I'll always take it. All right. Have a great day. Thanks for being with me today.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Bye.